One of the greatest parts of using cross-collateral is you can absorb fees on a purchase. Conventional financing, you can't absorb fees on a purchase to close, but if you have collateral or you have built-in equity, then you can actually absorb any cost that would come with closing on a transaction.
Something that the big five banks are notorious for is slapping a collateralized mortgage on your property, which means, if you buy a house for $500,000 and they give you a $400,000 mortgage, they may register that mortgage at 125%. So maybe you're at 525. The cool thing about using cross-collateralization is that on these private transactions with these higher fees, if you have enough equity available, we can take all of your costs out of that equity and really have no expenses coming out of your pocket.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and we're back with Josh and Ehren, and today we're going to be talking about cross-collateralizing when it comes to real estate and mortgages and all that good stuff. Now, this is something I find I'm having to explain more and more often these days, and I think we were chatting just before we started shooting the video, and literally when someone actually gets this, you just see a light bulb go off. So before we, explain it, who is this really effective for?
This is effective for real estate investors, guys who have to close privately and who have equity in other properties. If you have that equity in another property, it's not dead money, guys. It's not something that is just going to sit there and you can't use. I think just understanding how you can use this as a tool, as you said, it's a light bulb situation where you realize I have access to this capital. I can use this to be able to purchase other properties or to fund renovations or to help me out of to close quickly on a property. Like, this is an asset that you have, and it doesn't necessarily need to be dead capital. So this concept is an absolute game changer for anybody who's looking to move up. So to purchase properties maybe that you can't afford with like a regular A lender, or you don't have the capital to be able to purchase a property. The effectiveness of this specific tool in your investor tool belt is almost without words how important it is to understand this concept.
It's a great alternative to a private second mortgage as well too. Where on the private second mortgage, it's a completely separate transaction from your purchase. You're gonna have separate transaction fees, and the lender isn't gonna cut you a break on your second just because you're getting a first with him or with someone else. So in those situations, you're looking at now 4 sets of fees on the lender, 4 sets of legal fees, 2 on your private second, 2 on the purchase if you're purchasing privately, private lender fees on both of them. It's a more expensive option on the private second. You're limited to your loan to value. The collateralization is a great alternative.
All right, so we probably teased them enough. Let's explain what it is now. So what exactly do we mean when we're talking about cross-collateralizing?
Yeah, so cross-collateralization takes a look at how much equity you have in another property. So if you have, let's say, for example, a free and clear property, it's worth $500,000. You have no mortgage on there. You have $500,000 in equity. If you wanted to purchase a property, and it was in dilapidated condition, you had only so much money to come up with renovations and down payment. You have 2 options to be able to tap into this other equity to help. One is a private second, or you could refinance, but let's say that wasn't an option with affordability. You could collateralize that equity in that property that doesn't have any mortgage registered on it, and use that to securitize a greater loan to value on your purchase to get you more funds to be able to contribute to the down payment and to the renovations. So for example, let's say you wanted to purchase a house for $500,000, you're going to put 20% down, that's $100,000, you're going to get a $400,000 mortgage, but you need money to do the renovations. Well, we could take a look at getting you maybe another $100,000 or $150,000 from your other property that's free and clear, and tack that on to one large mortgage. So instead of having a first position mortgage of $400,000, now you have a mortgage of $550,000 or $500,000. That's going to get advanced to you when your mortgage closes. You're going to get that back into your pocket. Now you can use the funds to be able to go ahead and complete your renovations and use that towards the down payment. The cool thing about using cross-collateralization is that on these private transactions with these higher fees, if you have enough equity available, we can take all of your costs out of that equity and really have no expenses coming out of your pocket. Now one thing that we always stress on these privates is making sure it makes sense, and what is the exit strategy. It doesn't make sense to potentially pull out $300,000-$400,000 like using that cross-collateralize if there isn't a strong equity. If you don't have that uplift in your property to be able to refinance out of, or you don't have enough liquid cash in either other properties or in checking savings accounts to be able to pay that mortgage off, that doesn't make sense. But if we run the numbers and on the ARV there's enough equity to be able to pay out that collateralized mortgage and maybe even put some money back in your pocket, or at least take it out, then we have a strong exit solution. It makes sense. There's a way for you to get out of it, and it's a great opportunity to capitalize.
Yeah, so something that most people should understand is you don't need a free and clear property to use this strategy. Most lenders will use 80% loan to value of the property. So essentially a lot like a regular conventional lender who would allow you to refinance to 80%. Most private lenders also see usable equity as 80% of the value. So essentially what you do to figure out your value is going to be, we get a valuation on your house. And then we'll find 80% of that value, and then you minus your first mortgage from it, and that gap, whatever the first mortgage is to 80% of the value, is your usable equity that a lender can use or would like to use as a down payment. Anything above that you possibly can use, but it's probably just at maybe a 50% discount as to what the lender would want to use as collateral. You can then use that locked in equity as a down payment source. It increases or decreases the loan to value for the lender and allows you to get into the property, as Ehren was saying. The majority of people who use this specific strategy, we see it a lot with flippers, guys who necessarily don't want to have a bunch of their own debt capital as a down payment, but they want to be able to maybe tap into that equity for renovations, or we have guys using it almost as a home equity line of credit who can just draw from it, use it, do your project, pay it back kind of thing. This is specifically effective when you're in a few situations. One, you don't want to break your current first mortgage. If you're in a fixed term, it's expensive to break, or you just really like your 1.5% variable mortgage and you don't want to pay more on the total loan amount. This is a highly effective way to be able to utilize the equity in your home from project to project. This isn't like a second mortgage, so it's not like you get a mortgage on the property and take the cash out and just do whatever you want with it. It's attached to the actual property you're purchasing as well. It's a collateral charge, meaning the single charge over both properties. So say you're buying a property, the subject property you're purchasing, and we have a mortgage charge for $100,000. That $100,000 is also registered in second position behind your current first. Important to note that it just doesn't take up to the value of the property. It's $100,000. So if your collateral is $400,000 and you have a $300,000 mortgage, you now have a $400,000 charge on your property, which is more than the actual value of the property. Really great way to be able to tap into that equity. Only requires you to actually use it for a short period of time. So if guys are looking to get in and out of a project really quickly, this is something that isn't going to be around for a very long time. So you can move in and out of this and use it as you would like, depending on the project.
Yeah, I like it. It's a flexible product. Now, something to be aware of is understanding the first mortgage, if you do have one on your property, and whether or not that may be a collateralized type mortgage. So something that the big five banks are notorious for is slapping a collateralized mortgage on your property, which means if you buy a house for $500,000 and they give you a $400,000 mortgage, they may register that mortgage at 125%. So maybe you're at 525. Now, that doesn't mean you have to pay that 525%, but it does stop you from being able to utilize that equity in this collateralized type position or pulling out a second mortgage. So something to be aware of, and always talk to your mortgage broker. If you are getting a mortgage from the bank, they're not great at breaking down the entire product. Talk to them, ask them, make sure you have a full understanding of the type of mortgage you're putting on your property. Now, the collateralization, what it does is it really allows a lender, if we're not using it to increase the amount of loan. There are some other situations where private lenders may ask for collateral as security. So if you're buying a property in a very rural area, maybe it's not great resale value, a lender may ask for a piece of collateral just to securitize the project. Basically, it ensures that you're going to stay in there when the times get tough, complete the project, and make sure you get out and not put the lender's money at any risk, because now you've put up another property as security. So there are some other use cases for it as well. If you are collateralizing in just a security type, maybe it might help with the rate, or maybe it does help the loan to value. But there are some times where we collateralize a property and all it does is really just allow the lender to go ahead and put that new first position on your subject property. So a couple different use cases there.
Yeah, and one thing I'd love to jump in and just really break down for the audience, because I suspect a lot of people probably do have that first mortgage you got at the bank could be a collateral mortgage, and you probably don't even realize it. And so oftentimes the way this gets explained when you're buying that property and you're using the bank is they're like, hey, do you think at any point in time you might want to refinance this property, maybe get a HELOC, anything like that? And you're like, yeah, I guess I might someday. And they're like, well, what we can do is we can actually charge higher on the property, and then that way you'll save fees if and when you want to tap into that money. And oftentimes I see a lot of newer investors, a lot of first-time buyers just kind of saying like, yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. I'd like to save money and I probably want to tap into the equity someday. So just understand that, you may already have one of these mortgages, or be careful when you're going and getting your next mortgage at the bank.
Completely agree. It comes as a surprise to a lot of people.
It really does.
When you go and pull title and you go, I have $300,000 mortgage, but it's registered at $550. Mm-hmm. You're like, sorry, this option isn't going to work for you. This specific product has helped a lot of people close with speed.
Yes.
If you don't have the time to be able to go get an appraisal because you need to close quickly, or if you don't have the ability to be able to get capital to be able to close quickly, or your property is in disrepair and you need to close, but the resale value of that property isn't where you need it to be, having that equity is a great way for an investor or a borrower to be able to bring a package to a lender and show the strength of that package. Now, one of the challenges of using collateral is that you're also giving that property up to the lender. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't come without risk. So there are advantages and disadvantages of using this product. The risk obviously comes to the point where if something were to happen and you were to default on your loan, that lender now has two sources of recourse. They can liquidate both properties to get their loan back. So be careful in regards to using collateral on your projects. This is something that should be used as a tool, not as a long-term solution.
Yes.
A lot of success has come from getting into larger multifamily projects. Mm-hmm. As everybody knows, the 25% down payment on a multifamily, most multifamilies are a few $1,000,000 now. It's very difficult for somebody to come up with $500,000 in cash. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking to refi, most banks have capital requirements when it comes to capping out on how much cash you can take out. So how are the people getting into larger multifamilies and doing it? Well, they're using the equity in the property to buy an underperforming multifamily, and then they're turning it over, and then once it's turned over, you can refinance it and pay back the collateral charge in the private loan. This is seen a ton of success in probably in the last 12 to 24 months, just because obviously the valuations of these properties have increased at such a rapid pace that the rent hasn't. So we're trying to find solutions for people to get into this space without necessarily needing to go and draw hundreds of thousands of dollars from their other properties, restructuring all the debt, paying all the mortgage fees, maybe moving into a B lender with a higher rate. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense to be able to move that many pawns around when you can just utilize the tools you have.
Yeah. And one question I get a lot too is, are you paying a separate mortgage charge because that charge is registered on the other property? Like, do I now pay extra? And no, you're paying off of one loan amount off of that original loan. It's just also added on to the title of your other property. So you're paying one mortgage payment. There are an increase in legal fees slightly. There is just a charge from your lawyer to register that charge on the other property. But again, in terms of using a private second, if you're looking for a quick close and having another additional 2 sets of legal fees, you're looking at a smaller fee overall. So it is a more convenient option to be able to utilize that equity than trying to get a private second done or refinancing a complete property in short time periods.
For all those investors out there who call us with, how do you do 100% financing? Well, this is how we do it, guys. For people who are looking to get in with no cash out of your pocket, this is a great strategy to be able to do it. And this is how we structure a lot of our no cash down deals, is when you have the ability to be able to use another asset to bring strength to your purchase or to your project. Most of the strategies that we see this used for are BRRRR strategies, flip strategies, and obviously the 100% financing strategy. So if any of those are interest to you guys and you do have locked in capital in your house, this is a great option. You can only really use it with private financing. Conventional lenders aren't going to allow you to cross-collateralize your other assets to give you more cash on a down payment. This isn't seen as a legitimate down payment source with Sched 1 and Sched 2 banks. So this is going to have to be geared towards people who are buying or flipping properties that are underperforming or that aren't in the best of shape and need to close privately. Last but not least, one of the greatest parts of using cross-collateral is you can absorb fees on a purchase. Conventional financing, you can't absorb fees on a purchase to close, but if you have collateral or you have built-in equity, then you can actually absorb any costs that would come with closing on a transaction. So any broker fees, lender fees, legal fees. Obviously, the cost to close with a private loan is much more than what it would cost conventionally, but this strategy allows you to absorb some of that cost and reduce the cash out of your pocket.
Yeah, we've done a few files where there was enough equity available that we were able to go 110, 120% loan to value, cover all the costs out, and there is no direct costs out of the borrower's pocket on closing. Obviously, it comes out of your bottom line when you're refinancing out. You're gonna have a higher loan amount, but if you're in a situation where you have multiple projects on the go and you just don't happen to have the capital in pocket, being able to collateralize and just absorb those costs, like Josh said, and mitigate that out-of-pocket cost is a great option.
Absolutely, yeah. Really appreciate you guys breaking it down for us. And I'm sure now there's a lot of investors watching this at home that are going to be reaching out to learn more about how you guys can exactly cross-collateralize your real estate. And again, for a lot of investors, if you've been in this market now for, I guess, a year or two, there's likely a good chance you might have some additional equity you can tap into. So really encourage you guys, reach out to Josh and Ehren. All their contact information's in the video description down below. Make sure you jump over there, hit them up, and again, just start these conversations early, right? I think that's one of the important things, because if you want to be able to close fast on the next deal, it's not that you actually called them on 48 hours notice and this happens. What you want to do is build that relationship first, make sure you've got all your dominoes in place, and then when it's the right time, you can just hit it.
Completely agree, man. You want to be prepared, you want to know your options, have your tools, realize how to use them, and then you can be effective in executing your strategy.
And one thing I will say is just make sure you have your mortgage documents ready to go so we can verify the amount of mortgage that you have outstanding. The lender is going to ask for them anyway. So.